German International School Sydney and welcome to our virtual school tour. I am the registrar, Antje Alderman, and this is Felix, who's going to support me today with our school tour.
Hello.
How long have you been at the school now?
I've been at the school since I was 3 years old, so this should be my 11th year.
Oh, wow. Okay, so he knows quite a bit about our school tour, so he's going to do the first part.
Welcome. This is our preschool, and we will have the delight to talk to Silke, Bethke, the head of preschool. Hallo!
Good morning, Felix. Come on.
So this is actually quite a special place to me because I've been here since I was 3 years old. I'm 13 now, so I've been at the school for 10 years. And honestly, I don't have much memory of preschool, but I have photos and I remember somewhat that it was some of the most amazing times that I've had.
Many of our students look back to their time at preschool, and this is Silke Bethke, our head of preschool, who's been with the school for almost 20 years, so you know them all.
Yes, I've had a lot of children here in my time here, but I'm not the only one who's been here for a very long time. Most of our staff at preschool actually have. We have a very low staff turnover, which is really good because as a team we can collaborate.
How many children do you have here in preschool?
We are allowed to have 39 children per day. Not all children come 5 days. Some of them come 3 days, Monday, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and some come 2 days, Thursdays and Fridays. And we do recommend 5 days, particularly when children are not fully bilingual yet, because they need a lot of exposure in the second language. It is a bilingual program, so there's a strong emphasis on German obviously, but also on English because we do have families who come to us and the children can't speak English yet, so they learn both languages.
Now let's have a look around. What a beautiful preschool garden. Do you have a curriculum for the preschool kids as well?
Everything we do here at preschool is tailored towards long-term objectives we have for the children. And these are pretty much in line with the IB learner profile. We want knowledgeable children, caring children, risk takers, we want creative children or creative human beings. So everything we do, how we design the rooms, how we design the outdoor areas, actually driven towards that. We try and have an environment that is a lot of natural materials, that is challenging for the children to explore, that develops their gross motor skills and their sense of adventure. We also have a little garden where the children plant and see how things grow and develop. We harvest vegetables, which we use for cooking activities as well, because healthy nutrition is a very important part of our program too. We have a big sand pit, a mud area. Particularly for children this age, it's really important to give them sensory experiences.
And they can climb trees?
Only to a certain limit.
I know we have a 3-day attendance group and a 2-day attendance group and 5 days obviously as well. So when do the children usually start preschool?
They have to be 3 years of age, so theoretically they can start on their 3rd birthday. And if they're not fluent in both languages already, we do recommend that they come 5 days so that they have a sufficient exposure. Otherwise, for various reasons, families sometimes decide to only start with a few days. And we want the children to come at least 2 consecutive days so that they have a fixed group, that they can form relationships and friendships with other children. So it's either Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday and Friday, so that they can build on experiences they have done and can connect to the children of their group.
And because they have to be 3, they can start any time during the year?
As long as they're 3 and there are vacancies available, they can start any time throughout the year.
And if parents live quite far away, I know that preschool students can't use the public bus, but they can use our buses. How many students, or children I have to say, how many children use the buses to come here to preschool?
We currently have around 7 preschool children who use the school buses, and it's a very safe option because there's always a preschool teacher there in the morning to pick them up at the bus and we bring them down to preschool. We sign them in here, help them unpack their bags and wash their hands upon arrival. And in the afternoon, there's always a teacher that brings them back to the bus, buckles up. The parents provide us with car restraints so they're safe in the bus. And if there's no authorized person at the designated pickup point to pick up the children, and the bus drivers can't contact the families, they're not left to leave the bus on their own. So should anything happen and the parents can't be contacted, they would be brought back to school. So they're always kept safe.
And from what time to what time is preschool open? When can the children arrive?
The opening hours are from 8:30 till 3:30 in the afternoon. Usually from 8:30 till 9 is drop-off time, and from 3 to 3:30 is pickup time.
But because they don't have to be in school yet, they could be picked up earlier?
Particularly in the beginning when they're settling in that phase, and the day might still be a little bit long, they can be picked up earlier as well. That's no problem.
Oh, this is clearly the art and craft area.
This is the craft area. One of our goals is to have creative children, creative human beings. So we do not work with coloring in sheets or with, we don't draw for the children, because it's not a production line activity where children bring things home to pop on the fridge, which an adult has designed and they merrily decorate. It's more process orientated. They use a lot of recycled materials. That links in with our sustainability approach as well, where the children construct and build. And when they actually reach that stage where they want to depict a three-dimensional object on a flat sheet of paper, this requires creative solutions, so very complex problem-solving skills. And because we want to encourage that process, we do not draw for the children, tell them this is how you draw a car, because that gives them a format they merrily copy. Whereas if they have to think about, a car has 4 wheels, how do I draw that on a flat sheet of paper? That's the actual creative process. And each child solves these challenges differently. That's where the creativity comes in. And everyone produces different drawings, different artworks that are unique to them.
I love that the children can use real scissors.
Of course, we want to give them real life experiences here at preschool. We don't want to create an artificial plastic world that doesn't exist outside of the center, because that's what life is going to throw at them. So they need real tools. They also learn about safe handling these. They're in a supervised environment where they are guided towards developing their relevant skills.
Let's have a look at the book corner. This corner is particularly cozy. I wish I was a kid again. Can you elaborate a bit on your philosophy for the preschool?
Everything we do here is tailored towards long-term objectives we have for the children. And these are very consistent with the IB learner profile. We want knowledgeable, caring, creative human beings. We want to raise risk takers. And that is reflected in the environment, in the routines, and everything we do here. We have 2 book corners, so this is one of the book corners, because lots of the language learning happens in small groups during the day. We have group time once per day, where there's a larger group of children, but the children have less opportunity to communicate. Whereas in small groups, when we look at books, it gives the children more opportunity to actually actively use language and share what they know. So they're encouraged to predict what's going to happen in the story, or to describe what they see in the picture. And if another child comes and joins the group, the children are encouraged to explain to that child what happened so far in the story. So that's how they learn to communicate with one another, and the language is actively used.
And how do they communicate if they speak German or only German or only English?
At the beginning, they would not actively use, or very rarely start using words they've learned. Most children first take the language on receptively. So the children are free to use whatever language they prefer. They're not forced to repeat or use the language, but we model the language. So we actively use the language in everything we do, so that children are exposed to it and hear it. And some children start mixing a few words into their language, others wait and don't speak for a very long time and only take it in receptively. But once they're ready and actively start using the language, then the whole grammar is already correct. So it's a long-term process, that language development.
Well, I know for a fact that all of you here in the preschool, all you teachers, you speak both languages, German and English, but which language do you use primarily to speak to the children?
All of us are bilingual, which is really important so that there's no need to translate. Otherwise, the children would consistently wait for the translation. We have one teacher who is a native speaker in English, who speaks predominantly English with the children, very deliberately, because we have a number of children who come from abroad and do not speak any English. And the objective we have is that all children are at least bilingual. Many of them even have a third or maybe even a fourth language at home, so that's fairly common. The rest of us speak predominantly German with the children. So in theory, it's a one person, one language approach. Because we have to compensate for us living in an English-speaking environment. So they have English everywhere else, but we are the only place for many children where they're actually exposed to German. So the rest of us speaks mainly German. And I say mainly because we're not just a language school, we have a very holistic approach. So in the beginning, when they're uncomfortable or when they're just settling in and are stressed, that's not the moment for language learning. Then we would use the language that the child understands. Or if there's a conflict or a safety issues, of course, the priority is that the children understand us.
Do you document the children's learning?
Yes. We have individual portfolios, which are over there in the baskets. So this is where we keep the individual portfolios for the children. They look a bit like this. Some children who are here with us longer have several portfolios. We add learning stories, we have photos, the children are involved in the process. We have paintings and drawings they do, we write learning stories. So when children have had some kind of success or they've built something they really like, they ask us to take pictures and we act as a scribe, we write down what they want to write down. So they can add them to their portfolios. And parents are also encouraged to add as well. So it's a documentation of how they're developing, what their strengths, what their interests are. And by involving the children, the goal is that on a metacognitive level they understand how it's significant, how they grow and develop and how this is important to progressing further.
And this is being sent to the parents?
They stay at preschool until the children leave us, so when they go on to kindergarten, they get to keep them.
But they do get some form of reports in between? Daily reflections? So
we send out daily reflections, but these are not about the individual children's development. They're more to make the pedagogy visible to families. So they're included in our professional reflection. We write down a few things that happen during the day. Obviously, we can't write about everything because it's too much going on and not all children are involved in everything, but we always take, it's not the highlights of the day, but it's a glimpse into our work. And by explaining in depth what occurred, how we interpret that, how it's linked to our curriculum framework, we base most of what we do to the early years learning framework for Australia as a basis for our work. And over time, when families read those daily reflections, they get a better understanding about our curriculum framework and how our work, what we do, how it's linked to the framework.
Obviously we can hear how busy it is in the other corner, in the music corner. Is there a circle time at the moment? Let's have a look at this beautiful musical corner. It's clearly lunchtime now, so thank you very much, Silke.
Pleasure.
We see you again.
See you. Bye.
This is our primary school campus here, and this is our head of primary school, Clemens Pedane. Which year's primary school?
Well, primary school at our school is from kindergarten to year 4. From year 5 onwards, it's already secondary school or junior secondary school at the German International School.
Let's have a look at our primary school.
Okay.
Now we can see here our Jakob Wilhelm Grimm building, so it's the Brothers Grimm, for those who don't know the first names. That's where our preschool is at the lower floor, and upstairs we have some of our primary classrooms, and here in the Clara Schumann building we also have primary classes. Now how many classes do we have for which year level?
So at the moment, currently, we have 2 classes in kindergarten. We have 1 year 1, we have 1 year 2, and in year 3 and year 4 we have 3 classes. So there's 1 straight year 3, there is 1 straight year 4, and we have this year, that's a new thing, We have a composite class, which is
Stage-based
teaching and learning. So students from year 3 and students from year 4 are taught together, and that's in a different area of the primary school campus.
Let's have a look at these new classrooms that are made out of shipping containers, and they look like Lego buildings. Now here you can see our still new, very special classrooms. These are built out of shipping containers and won a design award, but they're very popular with the children because they are very spacious, they are warm, nicely insulated, so not too hot as you would think with steel in Australia. The class that is in here has one large classroom and also a small group room just for themselves that allows for internal differentiation, which we do in every class, but also a little bit of external differentiation where a small group can go in another room. So we're here now in the classroom of year 2, and how does a normal school day look like for a primary school kid?
So at primary school, the doors are open from 8 o'clock in the morning, so there's always someone on duty on the campus 1 that we just saw before, and they are supervised until 8:40 when everyone, all the classes proceed to the classrooms. However, in primary school we have this open classroom from 8:30 on. So the classrooms are open, the class teachers, or one of the class teachers is already in the classroom, and students who don't want to play outside or who have something important to tell the teacher, of course, they can already come into the classroom and start a conversation with the teacher, ask something, play, read, make themselves comfortable in the class, because at 8:45 the rest of the students, they come, and then they have 2 lessons in the morning, where from the timetable we look that they are always the same lessons, so that they have 2 lessons of math in the morning, and the other day they have 2 lessons of English, and the next day maybe 2 lessons of Deutsch. 10:05 we break up for morning tea, but we have morning tea in the classroom so that the students have enough time to eat properly and to drink and to enjoy a conversation or listen to a teacher who reads a story, or they're singing together sometimes, or they're sharing some interesting events that had happened. And at 10:15 then they have morning tea, and they have recess so they can go outside and run around and play, recharge for the next lot, because the second part of the morning is 3 lessons. Of course there are different lessons, but it can be also sport and music in those lessons. Most of the lessons, they are taught in German, but there's always support from the teacher. The teacher either translates, or they have some charts on the wall where we have vocabulary, where some classroom language is explained to them. Of course, English is taught in English, and also ethics is taught in English, and we have a lot of support for math. 12:55 we have lunch break. You can order lunch here at our canteen via Flexi School or directly at the canteen, and we have 45 minutes of lunch break. And of course there are some activities that students can do during lunch break, either go to the library and read, or touch typing on one day and have a conversation with the librarian, or we have chess on certain days. We have the music bus here. We also have lunch sport in the sports hall once it's renovated, the sports hall. So there are some activities, including choir, junior choir or senior choir, that they can choose during lunch breaks, or simply run around, play soccer. We have this nice soccer field or futsal field just next to this classroom. There's a big change or a big transition from our preschool to kindy, or from outside to our kindergarten. So it all starts with you, actually. So Antje sends out invitations to parents of our preschool to enroll for the next year's kindergarten, and once we know which students want to transition from preschool to kindergarten, a very elaborated transition program starts, which starts in preschool. So there's one designated teacher who will go with the students from preschool to the so-called real school, the big school, and this teacher, the so-called transition teacher, prepares the students. They visit classes in primary school. They start to get to know the year 2 students, because the year 2 students next year will be year 3 students, and they will be the buddies of the new kindergarten kids. So they probably have some lessons together with year 2, maybe a sport lesson, maybe a music lesson, but also maybe an English lesson and a math lesson and a Deutsch lesson, so that they know, this is how it works. We have a lot that we learn in preschool, but this is something different. It's organized differently. We have different teachers who come in, so they get a little bit of a feeling how the big school, the primary school, works. In January or beginning of February, when they start in their kindergarten class, the transition teacher, which they already know from preschool, will be with them, and they already know the new kindergarten teachers. So there's not this, everything is new, we don't know how this is going, we don't know the teacher, we don't know nothing at all, but the students already know quite a bit about the transition.
And you've got orientation days as well for those preschool kids or those soon-to-be kindy kids?
Exactly, we do have we call them orientation days. There are 2 mornings in November when we invite the new kindergarten kids to be and the new kindergarten kids from outside to come here in a classroom, and teachers will do different activities with them, so that we can get a feeling about the readiness, about what still needs to be done. Maybe some students still need to learn some things, still need to adjust some things, and we will give feedback to the preschool teachers and to the parents about the school readiness, because most of the students, they will come to kindergarten, but sometimes we have young students who are not 5 when school starts, so those kids need to be assessed, and there's a formal assessment, and we will give the parents or the teachers from preschool a feedback about whether we have a spot for them or whether we recommend an additional year in preschool.
What's your cutoff date for that assessment?
So the cutoff date for students who generally can come to kindergarten is the 31st of January. So everyone who turns 5 by January 31st, and parents have the chance to apply for early entry to school if their child turns 5 until end of June.
So everyone who turns 5 before the 31st of January will transition to kindy?
Will transition automatically, yes.
Okay.
And for the other students who might be ready already, but we don't know them, we don't know whether they are a good fit for the next year's kindergarten. That's why we need to see them, that's why we need to assess them. If they are in our preschool, our teachers, our future kindergarten teachers, or our learning support coordinator, they visit the students in their known environment in preschool and can already pre-assess a little bit, but nevertheless they will be invited to those orientation mornings, and those orientation mornings, of course, they are that's a requirement to attend these orientation mornings. Otherwise, we can't make a judgment whether the student is ready for kindy or not.
I know starting school is celebrated in a very special way at our school, the so-called Schuleinführung, start of school celebration. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Yeah,
we have this very German tradition of Schulköln or Schultüte. That is very big in Germany. Every student, every adult in Germany has done this on the very first day when you go to school. And on the very first day, the students, they have a very special place on the stage of our big assembly hall, which is the sports hall, and they will be called by name, each student individually, and they will be welcomed by the principal and by the new class teachers. And it's going to be a very, very big party because after this whole celebration there's of course a lot of photos that can be taken with the new teachers, with the principal, with each other, and then they go into the classroom for a short period of time just to know this is where we are going to be, this is where I'm going to be from next week on, and then usually the whole group of parents and teachers and students, they jump or hop onto their cars and we drive to a nice playground where there's also a coffee shop close by and have a nice afternoon, because on the next Monday the school starts.
And I know in Germany school starts from year 1, and I believe that's the same in Austria and Switzerland.
Yeah.
And obviously here we start 1 year earlier. What do the children learn in the first year? Do they follow a German curriculum? Or?
In the first year, so it's the whole curriculum that we follow is our own school curriculum, which is a blend of the Australian curriculum, the New South Wales curriculum, of the German curriculum, where we have to follow a very specific curriculum or incorporate a very specific curriculum from the Bundesland of Thüringen. And we combine those two and add a little bit of other approaches to teaching and learning, maybe a little bit of the IB learner profile that's already in there, that we try to incorporate a little bit, that already started in preschool, and maybe other new approaches to teaching and learning, Harvard Project Zero, etc. So we have this combination, but the kindergarten, since kindergarten, or this year before year 1, actually doesn't exist as school in Germany, Austria or Switzerland. So we have a strong focus on learning English, learning reading and writing in English with New South Wales trained teachers. So they are native speakers here from New South Wales or from England, and the students learn the English language properly in kindergarten. And once they transition to year 1, then in year 1 we start again on a different level with a different language, which is German. We learn the alphabet, and we learn a lot of things. A lot of things we don't have to learn anymore, because they learn how to write the letters, and they know we write from left to right and all those kind of things.
Now, probably the question that I've been asked the most by parents who are not from a German-speaking background, how would I be able to help my child with their homework if I don't speak German?
That's a good thing at our school, that we don't have homework in primary school. So in primary school, homework is part of the daily routine. So when you get the timetables at the beginning of the school year, you will see a so-called HB lesson. We call them HB, which is homework support lesson, Hausaufgabenbetreuungsstunde. So whatever they would have to do at home in a German school, it is part of the daily routine. Of course, in kindergarten it's more a playtime, because there's no actual homework where they have to write a lot. But of course, later in the year they start with sight words, with the learning words, and they have to be done at home, which is probably not a problem in English. And once it starts for German, for Deutsch, I think that the parents already are used to this additional language at home. Yeah, if there's no connection to German whatsoever, they are used to this. There is this additional language, and when it comes to repeating those words and studying those words at home, I think the parents already know how this whole thing works. Yeah, you get the words on Monday, you practice them at home on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, and then on Friday probably you have this little kind of test or so every other week. That depends on the teachers, how they organize the whole thing.
You mentioned earlier, and I think this might be fitting here, our stage-based learning class, year 3 and 4, where the 2 levels are combined. Can you elaborate a little bit on that concept?
That was actually one of the reasons why we thought a stage-based learning would better fit to our curriculum, to our approaches to teaching and learning, since we do a lot of differentiation in the classes anyway. So we have, if we look at this class, year 2, we have 23 3 students at the moment, but the level of the students go from, there are some students who are new to the English language and to Australia, so they need a lot of support in English. And then we have other students who need the same amount of support either in German or in math. So we do the differentiation anyway. And students in a stage-based class like we have in year 3 or year 4, students can, of course, in cooperation with the teachers and with the organization of the classroom, of the teachers, they can have, for example, join the math if they are year 3 students but are in a stage-based class. They probably can join most of the math lessons with the year 4 class, but the English lesson with the year 3 class because they're not native speakers, or the other way around, the German lessons with the year 3 class and English already with the year 4 class. So there's a lot of differentiation in the class going on.
That actually brings me to the next question that I'm being asked a lot by parents who don't have the German background. How many children do we have approximately in each class that are already fluent in German? Will the students that are coming without German, will they feel integrated and welcome?
It depends on the class, or each class, as you might probably know better, is so different. It's very it's exciting. If you go to year 2, it's a different experience in terms of language distribution in the class than, for example, in year 4. But roughly, if it comes to numbers, I would say you would probably know it better. A third would, or a quarter?
I would have assumed that in kindergarten, so the entry year, has probably even more English speakers than German speakers, because that is the time when there's more children coming from the local area, whereas in the years in between the entry years, there's more likely children to come from overseas.
And students who have already been with us for 3 years or 2 years, they are already being taught at the native speaker level, more or less in the main classroom. So they don't join the German as an additional language course anymore, but they are in the German mainstream lessons. So, but in regards to whether they are integrated or not, I think this is one exciting thing about our school. Most of our students, they know exactly what it means to be new. They know exactly what it means to transition from a different school or from a different country. I think they have this empathy about new students coming in, and they know this is a student that needs help. How many times am I in the classroom and just talking, and then my students who are here with me with school for a longer period say, "But Herr Pedanik, they didn't understand what you just said." So they help each other. So they make us aware. There needs a little bit of translation so that they know what it's all about. Or they have their buddies, which we assign from the beginning, so they immediately can translate and tell them what's going on.
Well, I'll believe that, because I know when I book someone in for a trial day, which you can do at our school if you happen to be in the country, that you can come for 1 or 2 days, consecutive days ideally, and try being in the class, meeting your classmates, and usually I think we have 1 or 2 buddies being assigned, and the kids are really always looking forward to meeting new mates.
They are very keen. If they know, there's a Schnupperschüler coming in, so they know it's a trial student coming, and I'm just asking, I need and then all the hands are already up. So they know I needed someone who is a buddy who shows them around and show them where the canteen is, where the toilets are, where the playground is, where the pick-up zone is. So they really...
That would help us for school tours.
You would know that.
I have one very tricky question. I don't know if you can answer that. I know every student is very individual, but it's probably a question that many parents have on their mind when their children don't speak German yet or not fluently. What would you say, how long does it take for a student who doesn't know any German, starting in primary school at the very beginning, until they are sort of fluent?
That's a very exciting question, because, yeah, as you said, each child is so different and you can't predict. That's the exciting thing about it. So sometimes you get a child in the class and it's very quiet, it's very polite, and then you feel like they don't speak German yet, they don't answer, but there's a lot of what we call passive vocabulary going on, and they just like a sponge, they pick up all the words, and then there comes this day when they all of a sudden just start speaking, and you're so surprised, and you feel like, oh my god, and the goosebumps, you get the goosebumps. It's just like this moment. And then you have those students who from the beginning, they try and they mix English with German, which is amazing, which is so good that they mix it. Even I sometimes mix, when I have to translate a worksheet for math, I'll just highlight those words, and then you really read. The first two words are in English and then they are in Deutsch, because we've learned those words, so I expect them to know that. And there are a lot of different things where we try to push a little bit and support a little bit. So, but overall, parents would probably want to know an exact amount of months or years. I would say the earlier the better. That's the first thing. So because there's a lot of talking going on and a lot of speaking going on in kindergarten and year 1. So if they join us in Kindi, I would say after 1.5 or 2 years, we can easily, most of the time, transition the students from the German as an additional language course to the mainstream Deutsch course.
Okay.
But
Now,
it can be.
let me ask a more rather fun question,
Okay.
away from the hard questions. I know on Tuesdays and Thursdays we have co-curricular activities, which are the fun activities. I know you're also a music teacher. Can you give us some examples what kind of activities the kids can choose from?
So when we decided to rearrange the whole co-curricular activity program a few years ago, we wanted to focus on certain areas at our school. So that's art, everything that has to do with art, whether it's creative art or singing or dancing. And then we have sport, everything that has to do with health and sport and everything here. Then also language-based activities and of course activities that go rather into science a little bit and in this area. So the students usually can pick. So on Tuesday and on Thursday after lunch break there are 2 lessons of this co-curricular activity. If we as a class teacher think that there needs to be a language support still, then one of those days is still the language support in the new language. But it's not like classes, it's more activity-based, play-based, singing-based. So if you need to learn to have this Deutsch AG on Tuesday or on Thursday, then you will be with students who are also on the process of learning this, and you still have the other day to pick from. So we have in the area of music and art and creativity, we have art and craft, Spielen und Basteln, we have musical, we have Blechblas, what's it?
The
wind instruments, so there's a lot of possibilities. In the area of sport, we have Röhnrad, we have tennis, we have table tennis, we have dancing, we have taekwondo. In the area of science, we have little scientists on both days. So
robotics,
also in robotics starts from in year 5, which is already secondary, as we explained earlier. So there are several activities that you can choose from.
One last question for our rather younger students. What are the options after school? I know we have an after school camp, not at our school, but an external provider called Extend can be booked. Our bus is taking the children to the nearby school where this external provider offers the after school care. But what other activities can students do straight after school on our premises here?
Yeah, at the moment we have some activities that parents can book for their children, so that will be taekwondo from Mondays to Wednesdays. We also do have soccer, and of course there are some tutoring opportunities after school, like instrumental tutoring, piano and wind instruments.
Oh, and I know there's also the nearby tennis club also offers lessons, and they come and pick up the children with their own van, take them there, they play tennis, they even look after them.
Exactly.
Parents can pick the kids up quite late, actually 5:30. And I know there's all the same option is there for golf.
For the golf course
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Clemens Pedanik. I think it's time for us to have a look at our surroundings a bit more, and I should definitely check out the library. From here you can see our sport field and all these areas here for our primary and secondary school students to use during their breaks. In particular, during lunch break, you can see a lot of secondary school students playing basketball or football on our sport field, and the primary school students are really busy exploring the bush. Our sports lessons are being divided into 4 terms. So one is reserved for gymnastics, athletics, ball games and swimming. For swimming, we happen to have the swim school just next door, so that our students can just get changed here in our change rooms, and they simply walk over to the swim school and make the most of their swim lesson. All other sports lessons happen in our indoor gym most of the time, or if the weather permits, on our sports field, which you've seen earlier. All of our buildings have names, and the library is called Johannes Gutenberg, just as our school. This is our library, and this is our librarian, Sibylle Burkhardt.
Good morning.
And so here we can see our library has 2 parts. This is the book part, and this is a group room that's also being used for library lessons. Which classes are being taught?
I have Kindy to year 5 on a regular basis once a week.
Oh, and
that's the bell.
is the bell. That means we're gonna have to move now, because a lot of kids come here during lunch break, and Sibylle will be very busy because this is the only room where eating is allowed inside.
Yep.
It's a bit chilly outside, hence my
They're
scarf.
allowed to play once a week on computers, but I also supervise homework at break times. Yes, they are allowed to eat, because otherwise they do it secretly, which we don't like. Yeah, and apart from that, I do library lessons once a week, where we look at library skills, information science, and obviously they borrow books, German and English by choice. And I see the IB students obviously up here as well.
Yes, I've seen lots of IB students working with you, learning how to reference
How to research. Yep.
research as well. Yeah, and I know the year 3s, they are learning to touch type,
Yep.
and they're very excited about it. And one more thing I've learned from you is that our books are not categorized by German and English into different sections, but they're all mixed, so that
They're
no
all
one's
mixed because we don't want people to stay in their comfort zone. If we can start spreading out.
fair enough. And once we can go closer, we can also see that even our preschool is already coming here twice a week and borrowing books of the occasional movie as well. So this is the area for our preschool and kindy and primary school children. So from memory, because I used to be a preschool parent myself at some point, I know that these areas here are for those children who can't really read just yet, because there's a lot of pictures in here, but text of course as well. And part of the library sessions that they have is that the teachers read to them, and they kind of cuddle up and read together or look through the books together, and they can also take books home. And they can also take some of the video cassettes home, and if you, for instance, have a child that doesn't speak German yet, it's particularly interesting to get a German movie every now and then. This is our preschool kiss and drop zone. So basically preschool parents, they have to sign in their children so they can park here, go in, sign in their child, or out. As it is now the end of the school day starts at 8:40 and it ends at 3:15. This is our bus zone here. This is where many of our students come and go from home or to home. It is now 3:15 almost, so they'll be coming soon to catch one of their buses home, and hopefully they'll be home at 4 o'clock. Oh, I forgot to introduce you. This is Frank, our bus coordinator.
Hi.
He's also driving one of the buses, the big one over there. If I am not in the way, I am not sure. But obviously we also have 7 other bus drivers who help taking our kids home safely. Oh, here comes our first group, our preschool kids. So even if your children are only 3 years of age, they have the possibility to sit in their own booster seat on our bus. They're being brought here by our preschool teacher and put safely on the bus. It's our kiss and drop zone where school students are being picked up. Parents are waiting here at the moment because this is the end of the day. Parents are waiting here to pick up their children. At the far back, you can see there's a little roundabout so you can safely turn around and drive out. There will be a teacher on duty in the morning as well as in the afternoon to ensure that everyone is safe and doesn't run between the cars. This is the end of our virtual school tour. Thank you very much for watching. Should you like to arrange a trial day, should you happen to be in Australia, or if you have any questions about the application, or if you like to have another individual school tour with me, please give me a call or write me an email. We're very much looking forward to seeing you in person soon.